Good morning, everyone. Pam Jacobson here, your host of Three Things You Need to Know. Welcome. If you are new joining for the first time or seeing this video for the first time, I've put all of my contact information over in the chat area. Feel free to go to my website or reach out to me through email or give me a call if you want to know more about the services that I offer, my credentials and so forth. But just in a quick nutshell, I've been in healthcare for my entire career. I work with clients all over the country, helping them to restore normal function, regain vitality, and really just have the healthy life that we all deserve. Anything I talk about in today's program, I can help you gain access to, whether that's a supplement or tools or treatment. But I really love your feedback and questions, so there's no obligation to work with me. If you have a question or want to give me some feedback, or there's a particular subject you'd like to know more about, please reach out. You've got all my contact information there. So for the last few weeks, one of the three things that I've been covering in each program was a series on resilience. How tough are you? If we've learned anything from our experience so far with the COVID situation, it's that our conventional medical system does not have the ability nor the capacity to impact our resilience. In other words, will we get the virus? If we get it, will we be very sick with it? Will we be one of the statistics that gets sick or even perhaps dies from the virus? It's resilience. How do we improve our resilience to things that occur around us or in our environment, right? The COVID virus is just one example. But what it has done is made it really clear, brought very clearly to the surface that it is our responsibility to really manage our resilience, right? The decisions that you make from the time you wake up in the morning until you go to bed at night are going to impact your resilience. And unfortunately, most of us have had no real education, whether formal or informal education, on what the heck does that mean and how do I do something about it? So a few weeks ago, I started this series, and today I'm going to change the format a little bit and really focus the next several weeks on resilience only. So I'll cover three things and more that you need to know, but we're going to stick to the subject of resilience because I think it is so important, and I don't want to make the program so long that I lose you by the time you get to the third section, which is where I've been discussing resilience. So we're going to focus there. Today is part 4. For those of you, again, that are new joining or perhaps haven't seen some of the other episodes, I encourage you to go back because they are sort of in some order of importance. Week 1 or part 1, How Tough Are You series, part 1, talked about sleep. It is the most important place to start because that's the only time the body actually can repair and recover, is when we sleep. And there are certain parameters, very specific parameters around sleep, and very specific information for what you can do about that. So please go back and tune in to How Tough Are You part 1 for sleep. Part 2, which is just slightly under the importance of sleep, I wouldn't even call it number 2, it's really 1.1, is stress response management. And that's a huge category. It really is. When I say stress response management, I think it's important to understand what I mean about that. It's not about getting rid of the stress. You can't get rid of the COVID virus or all of the stress or the politics or the riots or any of that, right? Those are out of our control. So how do you manage your response to stress? That was what we covered in part 2. Last week, part 3, I talked about fueling your body, the proper nutrition. I've developed a program, or really it's more of a thought process called the salad plate scenario that I think can help simplify that for most of us. So please tune into that. Today, in part 4 of our resilience series, I'm going to talk about movement, right? So notice that I did not say exercise. That conjures up, I think, for many of us, the groan, the feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to have an hour, I have to go to the gym. And of course, these days, most gyms are still not open, at least in the area that I live, and classes and things that we may have traditionally done in the past for exercise. And what I found with a lot of my clients is that they just simply stopped, right? It became the great excuse, the grand excuse to no longer have to do, well, I can't go to the gym. Well, that's really not what movement of the body is all about. It's not necessarily a gym workout or a class that we go to or a place to go. Although I will be the first to admit that being able to go out to do your exercise, there is a certain level of accountability there. It's easier to make it part of your schedule, and so you're more likely to do it. But the reality is, again, going back to the fact that this is our responsibility, your environment changed, not because you wanted it to, or not something that was within your control, but it changed. Therefore, you must also change in order to keep up with the positive impact that that exercise was creating for you prior to all of this. So I wanted to start by just because, I talk to a mixed audience. So some of you are completely sedentary, not moving, not exercising at all, never have, never had any plan to, and perhaps maybe even rolling your eyes at the thought of doing it. And then it ranges all the way out to the other end of the spectrum where I've got folks that perhaps maybe are even over exercising, which can be almost as bad as not exercising at all. So we'll talk about what it is, what the benefits are, how much, and types of exercise and so forth. But I wanted to first start by saying that movement is something that impacts all of us all of the time. I was in a functional medicine training seminar over the weekend, and it was talking about immunocompetency, in other words, resilience, how good is our immune system in the face of our current healthcare crisis. And there were many well-known researchers that were speakers in this meeting talking about all of the aspects of the immune system, but many of them, the majority of them, had movement exercise as part of their discussion about its importance for the immune system. So this is very timely information for me to bring this to you. I wanted to first talk to you about what the effects are, because even for those of us that exercise, I think we may not be really aware of the profound impact that it has on really all the major systems in the body. There's actually multiple pharmaceutical companies, really probably research labs currently, that have done research looking at what happens in the body when a person exercises and trying to capture that information and figure out how we can reproduce it in the lab to eventually perhaps make a drug that could give the same kind of benefits as exercise. Now, before you get too excited, what I would say is it's highly unlikely we'll ever come up with a drug that can mimic all of the benefits of exercise, because as I'm going to tell you in a minute, it's huge. And secondly, like most pharmaceutical drugs that may have some positive impact in one place, we usually find a downstream negative impact someplace else, right? Bottom line is it's your responsibility, and movement of the body is something that you can make a decision to do on a daily basis. And I'm going to talk to you about how you can make that part of your lifestyle without it being a drudgery. So some of the benefits. So first of all, the systems that are impacted: cardiovascular system, your musculoskeletal system, your immune system, which is so critical right now, your hormonal system, which impacts all of your stress response and so forth, your neurological system. For those of you that are concerned about your brain, cognitive health, aging, exercise is probably one of the most important things, aside from sleep and stress response management, that you could be doing to save your brain, especially if you're one of those people that has a strong family history or, like me, has the genetic markers and predisposition for cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. So how does that translate into specific diseases and things? Well, exercise, and this is all coming from scientific study, right? Exercise has been a subject of study for a very long time. We really do understand a lot of how exercise benefits our physical and mental and emotional structures. So it decreases the risk of really almost any disease state: diabetes, cardiovascular disease, mental health issues, cancers, and strokes, heart attacks, just about any kind of disease that you can imagine, autoimmune disease. Exercise has a benefit. There really is no disease process that is going to be worsened by exercise and movement. It slows aging, as I talked about, but one thing that is a relatively new understanding is that it lengthens. Many of you may have heard the word telomeres, which are the little end caps on our chromosomes. And they basically shorten as we age. And the thought is that they're sort of the determining factor in terms of a person's chronological versus their physiologic age, right? In other words, if I'm 80, but I look and feel like I'm in my 50s or 60s, then I somehow figured out how to preserve those end caps on my chromosomes. And again, a lot of research in this area looking at what do we need to do to lengthen the telomeres? Well, one thing that we can do that we know works is exercise. It triggers exercise is the only lifestyle thing that we can do, really the only thing in general, according to some of the researchers this past weekend, that creates something in the brain called neurogenesis. We used to think that the brain, you were born with all the brain cells you were ever going to have, and they basically just died off as you age. Well, we understand now that that is not true. And exercise is actually one of the ways that you can create new brain cells, or neurogenesis. That was a very exciting concept, discussed a lot this past weekend. And so something that you have control over, right? These are things, if you do this on a daily basis, you're making all of these major impacts in all of these body systems. But I think the most exciting thing for me, I just turned 59 a couple weeks ago, and I'm really focused on aging. How do I stay young? How do I stay healthy and active and vibrant? And that's really what my work with people is about. It's about restoring health and then maintaining that health so that we have really good experience with our vitality and quality during the aging process. It also is considered a treatment, officially a treatment for depression. Depression is, and I think especially now during all of the COVID craziness, we're seeing a spike in a lot of the mental health issues like depression and anxiety. But exercise is a treatment for those things. It impacts serotonin. It impacts something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is what protects and feeds the cells in the brain. And so very important for the management of depression. And again, exercise is not going to complicate or exacerbate in any way a treatment that someone may already be under for depression. And in fact, it will help that to be more effective. So exercise treats depression. It decreases, as I discussed before, dementia risk. It strengthens the nerve impulses in the brain, exercise does. It controls inflammation. This was a very exciting discussion for me over the weekend to hear the researchers talk about actually doing exercise research in their labs and measuring some of the inflammatory cytokines. These are the same inflammatory cytokines that we're seeing be out of control in those patients that get COVID, that have a very bad experience, end up on a ventilator, maybe pass away. You've heard the term, the cytokine storm. Well, that's what they're talking about. Cytokines are inflammatory products, if you will, and exercise helps to control those. So exercise is a very important tool that we can use to manage inflammation in the body. It's also part of a weight control effort. Exercise alone does not cause weight loss, but when combined with all of the other things that we discuss in the Resilience series, is certainly a very critical piece of the weight loss program. It is very important for bone health, especially weight-bearing exercise. So those of you out there that are struggling with your bone health or maybe have a family history of osteoporosis, exercise is going to be particularly important. It helps to maintain and build muscle mass. And again, when we think about our aging population, this is one of the key things that happens in aging is the loss of muscle mass. And when we lose muscle mass, it very much impacts not only your longevity, but your quality. It impacts balance. We see much more fall risk. And so muscle mass maintenance, or if you're a person who doesn't have great muscle mass production comes from exercise. Stress response, right? I talked a lot about the importance of stress response management, and exercise has been shown to positively impact the production of stress hormones. So very important in any stress response management program. And then finally, and I think probably most importantly, mortality, right? We saw in some studies as much as a 73% decrease in mortality in people who exercise moderately to vigorously during a certain amount of time during each week. So I hope that hopefully turns on some light bulbs for you, some aha moments to go, wow. I mean, this is like a tool I own that I have responsibility for, that I could use every single day to impact all of these systems and particularly my immune system, right? Which is so important for all of us right now. So what type of exercise, right? There's lots of different kinds. Does that really matter? Yes, it does matter. I kind of categorize maybe 3 primary categories of exercise. Cardiovascular exercise, which is where you get your heart rate up. That's going to be things like aerobic activity, bike riding, running, fast walking, swimming can be cardiovascular, using an elliptical machine. There's lots of ways to get the heart rate up, right? Just jump rope, do some jumping jacks. It does not require a gym. It does not require special equipment. But cardiovascular activity is very, very important, particularly for the benefits to the brain. The studies looking at the neurogenesis, the creation of new brain cells, looked mainly at the benefits of cardiovascular exercise. Your heart system, your brain and heart, your cardiovascular system really requires that type of exercise on a regular basis. Category number 2 would be strength, right? So that would be using weights, building strength. You can get some cardiovascular benefit during that. I work out with a trainer a couple of times a week, and I wear a biometric device that kind of measures all of my, heart rate and all of that stuff. And there's many times during my strength workouts where my heart rate gets up for very short bursts of time. But strength workouts really are there for building that muscle mass and affecting those areas like bone health, muscle mass, musculoskeletal maintenance, and so forth. So that strength is really important. I know many of my clients will focus themselves in one area that they really like. Oh, well, I have a Peloton and I just ride that every single day. Or I work out with a trainer 3 times a week, but that's really all I do. The problem there is that you're only getting a part of the benefit that you could be getting. Now, any exercise, some exercise, regular exercise of any kind is better than none. So I want to qualify that. But if you're like me and you're looking for, I want all of those benefits. I don't just want some of it. I want all of it. You really need to be doing a variety of movement. So cardiovascular movement, strength movement, and then flexibility, the things that you get from stretching programs and yoga, some types of yoga, whether it's restorative or flow yoga, it doesn't really matter. But that's really important too, flexibility for things like balance. Now you can build strength with flexibility, and you can also have some cardiovascular output with flexibility. In fact, there's lots of great studies on yoga to show that it has as much of an impact in many of these areas as cardiovascular and strength. So, but it also helps you to maintain a level of flexibility. And there's a lot of studies that show that good flexibility has a huge impact on aging, balance, fall risk, things like that. So you need a little bit in all 3 of these categories. So how much time, right? That's a big question. And I have to honestly say, in the research that I did, and even in this training seminar this weekend, it was a question that came up quite a bit. How much do we tell our clients? There's no real rigorous scientific evidence as to exactly how much time is needed. However, there are some guidelines. So the guidelines really are, at this point, movement optimally would be daily. Now, remember, we're using a variety of things. So you could do strength training one day. The way that I mix up mine is I do some type of cardiovascular activity 3 times a week. I do some type of strength activity 2 to 3 times a week. And I do yoga 2 to 3 times a week. So I work out, I do some kind of movement on a daily basis. And that really, I think, if you're looking for optimal impact, moving your body in some way on a daily basis. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going all out every day, that it's an extreme, hit high intensity type of a workout or cardiovascular workout every day. It's using this sort of mixture and balance of movement. So for me, sometimes it's just getting out in nature and walking or hiking. Some of the exercises, the types of exercise that fit into these categories, again, running, jogging, swimming, are some of your spinning, riding a bike, or some of your cardiovascular exercises. There's all kinds of high intensity training. As far as tools go to make it easier for you, especially if we're homebound, it's amazing the numbers of apps, YouTube videos that are available now to bring a group exercise or directed exercise from a trainer or a, say, yoga instructor right into your home, right? All you need is your phone or a laptop, and you have everything you need right in your living room to be able to do movement. And you have control over how much time you're spending as well. So for those of you out there who are feeling like, well, I just don't have time to exercise, there were recent studies showing that short bursts of exercise had just as much impact as spending an hour in a class or a program or at the gym with a trainer. So the bottom line is there's really no excuse, right? You can choose from a variety of exercise, and you should. You should move your body every day. You can use all kinds of different tools to help you in terms of, like I said, YouTube videos or apps. And you can split it up, right? So the amount of time that's recommended is 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise. So getting your heart rate up, for 150 minutes a week at a moderate level, or 75 minutes if you're doing exercises that are more intensive. What I would say is a minimum of 30 minutes, whether you did that in short 5-minute bursts or you did that in a full 30-minute program, if you did that every day, right? So 30 minutes every day would get you would actually pass the 150 minutes a week, and mix it up, right? Depending on the amount of time that you have, depending on what you did yesterday, you can make the decision today to do flexibility training if you did weights yesterday, and then you do cardio tomorrow. Sometimes I do 2 in one day. I'll do maybe 15 minutes of yoga in the morning and maybe a 15 or 20-minute spin ride in the afternoon. The point that I'm trying to make, guys, is that you have to make it work for your situation. There's no hard and fast rule. I would say that it requires, just like everything else, prep and planning, right? If you sit down on the weekend and you look at your week ahead and you say, okay, where's my exercise going to fit in here, right? I have a really busy day on Tuesday. I'll just give you an example. Today I do this, and then I've got patient calls, and then I have a meeting, and then I have something this afternoon that's going to make it so that I will not have time to exercise. So I had to plan ahead. On Wednesday, I have a block of time right after I'm done here, so I'm in my workout clothes. I have a block of time between now and my first patient call. That's when I'm going to do my exercise today. But I can't wait until this morning to figure that out. I needed to have planned for that at the end of last week. I sit down on Sunday morning, I plan for my next week. So exercise is no different than planning for your nutrition, planning for your stress response management, planning for your sleep. You have to plan ahead. And you have to put it on your schedule, right? I have it right here on my calendar that when I'm done here, I've given myself 45 minutes to do my exercise before my patient call. So that's very important. It needs to go on your calendar. You need to plan ahead for the activity, and you need to decide what that activity is going to be. Am I going to use an app? Am I going to ride my bike? Am I going to go out and do a hike? Those will all vary in the amount of time you need to spend. Or do I have a super busy day and I'm only going to have 5 minutes 3 or 4 times throughout the day, and I'm just going to exercise right next to my desk here, right? I have a rebound or a little mini trampoline. I'm going to get on there and march in place. I'll do some jumping jacks. I'll do some squats. So, there's plenty. If you can Google 5-minute workouts, 4-minute workouts. I think there's even something called the 20-second workout. There's tons of tools available for you online to mix up your exercise and make it work regardless of what your day holds for you. So bottom line, folks, you must move. You should move daily. It has massive benefits for you in all areas of your health. It is critical for your resilience and critical for your immune health during this COVID time. And I can't stress enough the importance of it. You should shoot for moving daily, minimum of 30 minutes. Really, I would look more to 45 minutes to an hour. And whether you do that all in one block or you split that up in small segments, and make sure that you're mixing up your cardio, your strength, and your flexibility. So there you have it, part 4 of our resilience series. Next week, I'm going to have a special guest. We're going to talk about supplements and other types of support like that we can use for resilience. So very exciting. And so please be sure to tune in next week. If you have any questions or input, then make sure that you contact me. Otherwise, I'll see you all next week, 9 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday. Take care, everyone.